listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradio.tv. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone 24/7, 365, as well as the live broadcast Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight. Eastern, that is, at www.xzoneradiotv.com. Just a short note before we get to our guest this hour. Good friend of ours, Gwilda Wiaka, has had a little bit of an injury. She's resting at home, I understand, in beautiful Colorado. So, Gwilda, from everyone here at the X-Zone, to you, and get well soon. By the way, X-Zone Nation, Gwilda is the host of the Science of Magic show that airs here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and you can check out the Science of Magic website at www.thescienceofmagic.net. Get well soon, kid. My guest this hour is Judi Vitale, and Judi helps you align your actions with your passion and purpose. Working with her, you can find your life path, identify your goals, and reach them with a sense of accomplishment and mastery. Now, after many years of training in New York City and around the country, Judi's proficiency in transpersonal coaching, hypnosis, and astrology combine to serve your needs for spiritual discovery, personal development, and transformation. A graduate of the Carnegie Mellon and one-time horoscope writer for top national and global magazines and websites. Judi is the author of 2 books on relationships and parenting. She has attained the highest level of certification from the National Council of Geocosmic Research Professional Astrologers, and is currently working hard on a master's degree in transpersonal astrology from the Wellness Institute of Issaquah. And that's in Washington. Joining me now is Judi Vitale. And Judi, welcome to the X-Zone.
Well, hello.
My goodness, you're a busy lady.
Oh, hey, we've got to get it all into one lifetime, right?
Well, I always thought that we keep coming back until we get everything right.
Well, yeah, but you just want to get a lot done, and I want to get a lot done in this lifetime so that I can share it with other people and get them moving faster, too. There's lots of work to do,
There sure is. Besides, I want to go play on the clouds with a harp and a nice white gown and, look down at people and say, ha, been there, done it. You'll learn. You'll get it. Come on.
Fun, too. That's fun, too.
So tell me, Judi.
But not right now.
What started you on your quest, on your crusade to do the great work you're doing?
I just was always a little bit different from other people. From the time that I was very young, I paid a lot more attention to the paranormal, to astrology, to numerology. I had everybody's signs memorized, and that was my first path, and my first love was astrology. And I started off in my late teens. I had my own radio show way back when in college, and I used to read the horoscopes or the moon sign of the day on my radio show, which was kind of weird because the rest of it was just like funky music. Then when I moved to New York City after graduate school, I kind of fell into it as a hobby, and then it became so much of a passion that it transformed into a career. I had a very strong writing career. I wrote for magazines like Redbook and Mademoiselle and Marie Claire for years and years and years, 17.com. And, I thought, hey, this is it. And then, of course, the publications industry didn't do so well in that last crash. And I realize now that all of that, what I did when I thought, hey, I made it, that was just the beginning. There's just so much more to do. So I always wanted to get involved with hypnotherapy. So I did that about a year ago and started off on this journey with transpersonal psychology. And what I do now with people as a coach, I work with trying to, like you said, align their actions with their passion and purpose, but more important, because I know you and your listeners understand this, to let that highest voice inside of us, that part of us that's connected to the source, whatever it is that we call our source of power, and to connect with that source and allow that to be in charge of our lives, rather than being tossed around and tumbled by what happens around us, to be able to take that view of wisdom and knowing and learning that, we're here for all the experiences that we're having and how to make the most of it. And also how to align our actions, act on our own behalf. And it's not surprising, but it's sad to see how many people are so far off that path. And I so enjoy working with them. And I don't put them on their path. I show them how to get on it, their own free will.
Now, what is transpersonal life coaching, and how does it help people?
Well, transpersonal life coaching is a little bit different from what you usually think about with coaching. Although that's wonderful too. There's, productivity coaching where somebody's trying to get you, closer to your sales numbers and beyond them and that kind of thing. And there's life coaching with let's get you, working physically and getting your diet together and organizing your time better. There's that level. The transpersonal is a lot different, and it has to do with getting people aware of their real, true being and their real, true purpose for being and their real, true purpose in life, and getting aligned with it and making it a priority rather than something like, one day I'll think about that. When that happens, when that light turns on inside a human being, magic happens, because all of a sudden the things that seem to be impossible to work with become very easy, because you're doing exactly what you intended to do when you came into this life.
But how many people are actually on the right path? And how can you help them identify that, you know what, you've got it all wrong, this is the wrong path? And how do they take that news from you?
They don't usually get it from me. They usually already know.
Oh, I see.
They come in and, they usually come in. Sometimes they'll come in as an astrology client, and they'll say, tell me what the stars say, and I will. I mean, I sort of will do that too. I'll do a one-off astrology reading, but the beauty of doing this work is that I can use the astrology as an X-ray. I mean, I actually have a client who knows nothing about it. He met me in a totally different context. He was very excited to work with me because I told him that, I would help him align his actions with his passion and his purpose. And he said, I want to talk to you. And so we did.
Sure.
And when I pulled the chart out and looked at it, he said, what on earth is that? And I said, look at it as an X-ray. And that's really, and it's very useful to have that astrology chart as an X-ray, because it does tell me the patterns in a person's life that need to be worked on. See, so many of us think, I'm a Pisces, and so I'm this way. And it's true to a degree, but our charts and the understanding of our astrology patterns is given to us so that we can learn how to work and become better at things, not so that we can use it as an excuse. And so working with coaching really gives me an opportunity to help people do that. Now, has newspaper astrology helped or hindered professional astrology? Well, here's how I looked at it, Rob. When I was writing horoscopes, now I have a very, very deep and solid academic background in astrology. I often tell people, and it is the truth. Right. I studied harder for that than I did for my first master's degree in public administration. It was much harder, much more comprehensive than everything else. But the idea of a horoscope might not appeal to somebody like me because I'm going to be looking at it going like, well, why did they say that? But for someone who knows nothing about the esoteric and knows nothing about astrology, and if they get a good horoscope, and most of them are written by good-hearted people, and they say, hey, that kind of worked for me, as long as they don't get into that addictive pattern and they just kind of say, well, maybe there is something beyond what I can see and touch and feel and hear. And there's like this other kind of force that's working with me, and I can work with it and make my life better. That's the beauty of people reading horoscopes, that they have that sense that there might be someone watching over them. So I like that. Has it helped or hindered astrology? I think it's, the person who reads the horoscope is then going to come for the astrology reading, eventually, if they get interested enough.
Astrology and hypnosis, that is a very unique combination. Can you tell me more about that? Because I've been doing the show now for 25 years, and this is the first time I've had a guest on who actually uses these two. One is a discipline, and the other is, how would you best describe hypnosis? Self-help?
Well, hypnosis is a technique. It is a technique for accessing the thoughts and feelings that most of us suppress.
Okay.
And at the Wellness Institute, where I am being, I have been trained in hypnosis, but I'm going further and going the whole bit to get the transpersonal psychology degree.
Good for you. Congratulations.
So it's really fun. And, to like write and research these topics, it's awesome. They have a whole course in the tarot. Are you kidding me? I'm there.
Wow.
So, using hypnosis is a way of getting at those subconscious things that we still act out. Because say that you have a childhood trauma, it could be anything from being chased by a dog to being sexually abused, to being verbally or physically abused, to being neglected, whatever it is that causes trauma. And it can even occur in the womb or before you make the transition into this lifetime, where you have a trauma and it gets stored in the back of the brain, in the part of the brain that just processes emotions, but it doesn't come out. The pathway between that and our rational mind doesn't connect because we go into emotional shock. And so when this occurs and those feelings don't get translated into words and we don't timestamp it, when something similar happens in our life later on, we go right back to that point of shock and we react to it, and we don't know why we're doing it. And when we use hypnosis, we go back we allow the person to regress back to the other times in their life when they felt that feeling of panic or fear or sadness or loneliness or abandonment or whatever it is that is their issue. And they can identify it and talk about the way that they felt as a little child. Say that, your big brother told you, you're ugly and you're never going to get a girl. Forget you. Just take whatever comes along.
Oh.
Well, it's very likely I have seen people in the mirror who have gone through life, just taking whoever came along. But when the person realizes that this was an erroneous piece of information, we can take them then and talk to them while they're in that state and say, now, what's your new conclusion about that? I'm a good person and I deserve to be with someone that I want to be with. There are a lot of people who would want to be with me, and I get to make a choice too. So the person comes out with the awareness that was in the past and this is the present. And it's, they're giving it, the saying about renting time in your head.
Right.
And that's what these thoughts do to us. And so when we can bring them out to the surface and, really deal with them and reframe our opinions of ourselves, oh, God, leaps and bounds in our progress occur.
But what about the old saying? What about the old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me? Obviously, that was said before the time of the social media and Twitter and Facebook and electronic bullying. How can hypnosis help a child or an adult, for that matter, who is being exploited or who is being bullied electronically?
Well, there are a lot of ways that you can, with the hypnosis, and we even, some of us practice over like a go-to-meeting thing. I always like to see the person, so that I see the clues that I'm getting from their body and such. But when you work with a person, you go back. We store all this also in our body, so there's a somatic factor. So maybe, you have like this feeling, this lump in your throat. You don't know what that's about, and it gets tighter when you feel like you're suppressing your feelings. Some people might begin to do emotional eating because they want to stuff their feelings down. We allow them to express these emotions. So rather than just sitting there and going, I've been bullied, we take them into a safe place and we let them express the anger that they might feel from being bullied. We might do something like give them a pillow and let them yell into the pillow and tell the person off into the pillow. There's no harm done in that, but it's coming out of their body. So in some cases, we have like situations where we allow people to very safely get it out of their body by pounding. We have an emotional release hose and a punching bag, and they can just wail on it and let all of that rage out of the body and out of the subconscious mind. And it is it's different than, like giving a cure or telling somebody like you're going to stop eating because I have you hypnotized.
Right.
It's about going back there and saying like, this is why you're doing it. So now that you don't have the reason anymore, you won't do it.
Is it true?
The reason is gone.
Is it true, Judi, that a person can only be hypnotized if they want to be hypnotized?
I believe that to be so to some degree, but I'm assuming that if someone is paying me to be hypnotized, that they want to be hypnotized. But, there are people for whom hypnosis does not seem to be a solution to their issues. And, I can dig that. That's okay. Sure. But I find that most of the people who say that don't want to be hypnotized. It's usually because they're uninformed or they're fearful. They don't know what's going to come up. And sometimes that's the saddest thing, because if they would just allow themselves, give them permission to process those emotions, their lives would get so much better.
How does hypnosis work? What is the physiology behind hypnosis? When you have someone in your office and you are putting them into a hypnotic state, a trance, okay. It's a trance state. What happens inside of the person's mind?
The brain waves change their patterns. They go from a mentally alert stage into one that is calmer, and it's just done by words and imagery. I don't wave the pendulum or anything like that. Really? It's all a very willful kind of thing. No, we just talk, and I have a very soothing hypnosis voice that I would, a trance-inducing voice that I would deploy. Right. It's very soft. I want the person to trust that they're going to be fine. We make sure about all that. We have a little conversation before we go into the session, of course. And, we talk about what's going to happen, and we just take them back and have them relax, think of a place that they just love that's so calm and relaxing, to think about everything about it and to get a color. And then we give them what's called an anchor. So they know that when they go into the hypnotic state, if they go to something that's really uncomfortable and they don't want to be there, they can put their thumb and forefinger together again, and they'll be back in their safe place. And they'll be okay. And then, just to come out of it, it's all a matter of suggestion. When our brain waves slow down to the point where we're able to allow ourselves to hear and process what's in our subconscious, we can also very easily come back out of it if we wish. So it isn't like you're trapped in this state, and there's no one who would ever leave my office in a hypnotic state. I always tell them to leave, 15 minutes or so to drink a nice glass of water and stand up, and maybe we'll do something like, talk a little more or walk around, or sometimes like I have a drum in the office, let them bang on the drum a little bit, just to get back in their bodies, so to speak. But physiologically, what's happening is that the brain is emitting, it's in a different state. It's almost like in a quasi-dream state, but it's in a receptive state too, so that it will accept suggestions to like go back in time and tell me the last time that you felt that when that lump in your throat had a voice, what would it say? You know, and you'll get back to some very interesting moments in people's lives, and there's always a theme. The same emotion keeps coming up in each of the instances that they speak about, and we go to like 2 or 3 of them in a session.
What about using hypnosis for past life regression? Have you done that?
Yes, and sometimes it happens spontaneously.
Really?
Yeah. People will regress, and you'll say, well, when's the last time that you felt this burning feeling in your feet? And they'll go, oh, I don't know, you know, and we'll look at your feet. What do you have on your feet? And if they describe, you know, their shoes, you know, then they might be different shoes or sandals, and then they'll describe the clothes that they're wearing, and it could be from a past life, and we'll talk about that. And there are people who do solely past life regressions using a very similar technique. We also find people, you'll say, well, what do you have on your feet? And they'll go, I don't know, I can't see. All I hear is water. They're in the womb. They've regressed to the womb. And they can feel and sense things like the mother's smoking or taking drugs, or the mother's, you know, brain chemicals if she's nervous or upset. Or people yelling and screaming outside. Maybe they'll hear that. And sometimes people have trauma during the birth process with a cord wrapped around their neck or something like that. It's very liberating for them to understand that, you know, it isn't something that's intrinsic to them to have a feeling of being suffocated. That was very natural for them to feel that way. But their new framework is that they were rescued, that they were saved, and that they're supposed to be here.
So what you're doing is supplying them a way to understand their feelings, their emotions, and, you know, unpack the luggage that they brought with them into this lifetime.
You got it.
Excellent.
You got it.
Judi, you and I have to take a short break. Please stand by. Thanks very much for joining us. This is great. Exonation, my guest this hour is, my great pleasure. My guest this hour is Judi Vitale. Her website, www.readthestars.com. That's www.readthestars.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Once again, you can listen to us live Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, or the rest of the week, the rest of the hours, the rest of the minutes. The best of the X Zone from over the years. We go back to, 1992. Some of our guests have, departed since then. Bud Hopkins, Neil Armstrong, just to name a couple. This is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And Judi Vitale and I will be back on the other side of this short break, right here from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Ever wonder if your advertising dollar is at work? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads@xzoneradiotv.com. How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Mnemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created mnemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wieka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wieka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Welcome back, everyone. I'd just like to say hello to all our new listeners in Europe listening to us on Radio X. We're being broadcast on Radio X, which is Belgium's only English-speaking radio station, commercial radio station. And, of course, it is heard throughout Europe. So to everyone listening to the X-Zone, with yours truly, Rob McConnell, on Radio X, thank you for joining us. And, of course, I'd like to also say hello to all my good friends listening to us on Talkstar Radio. And, of course, all the members of the X-Zone Nation around the world listening to us live on xzbn.net or the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Judi Vitale. We've talked about hypnosis, a bit of life coaching. But before we get to astrology, Judi, I just played a commercial about soldiers, about the name of the advertiser is songs and stories of soldiers. And by the way, we do that as a public service because these people do wonderful things for soldiers. You know, they give them a little MP3 player, and they do what they can. The man behind the entire project is Dan Perkins. And Dan is a very hardworking, dedicated, loving person who just wants to show his appreciation for the sacrifices that these men and women, you know, it's
unbelievable, isn't it?
It is. It kind of
incredible.
Talk about the lump in the throat. You know, this great work that so many people do. And, you know, there's so many unsung heroes in the world today. We always hear about the bad because in today's media, if it don't bleed, it don't lead.
There you go.
You know?
True.
Dan Perkins does a great job. You do a great job helping people. And, you know, for the many people who don't say thank you, Judi, thank you for the work that you do in helping the people that you help.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for helping us all get the word out.
Hey.
Wonderful. You do a fantastic job as well.
Thank you, sweetie. You know, my philosophy is if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Can hypnosis help people, soldiers with PTSD?
Most certainly, yes. Now that you've brought it up, absolutely. Now, PTSD is a very serious, and I mean, when I was talking about people who had childhood trauma, it's the same mechanism at work. Things happen that are just so unbelievable that we store them in parts of the body, in the backs of our heads, you know, wherever they don't have to be dealt with because we just can't deal with them at that moment because our need to survive. So, yes, absolutely. Hypnotism is used and hypnotherapy is used to help people with PTSD for them to process the emotions in a safe place. Again, you know, everybody's so afraid of being angry. Well, we are angry and we need to release it, get it out of our bodies so that we can then, you know, give that part of our body that's angry a little bit of love. And then we feel better. And then we can function. We can be a whole person again.
How long or how many sessions would it take, in your opinion, to help someone with, let's say, PTSD? Does this depend on the person and how much work you have to do to help him or her face their demons?
Well, there are several variables. One of them would be the severity of the event. The other variable would be the willingness of the person. Sometimes if a person has been put through horrible events that have, you know, especially if it involves betrayal of trust, it takes a few sessions just to get them to trust the practitioner enough in order to allow them to put them into the hypnotic state. So, you know, you take it, and you know, we teach people also how to titrate their emotions. So if you say that, oh, I feel that thing in my arm, it makes me feel mad. I feel mad. Okay, well, how mad are you now? We make them, you know, we use their own words to allow them to get to tune it up. And then we teach them also how to tune it down, you know. And by releasing it, they do it. But also when they learn that they can do that, you know, they have that reaction. Oh, I want to go eat an ice cream sundae that I shouldn't eat, you know. Oh, okay, I don't have to do that. I can do something else, or I don't have to do it at all. I can just realize that that's an old reaction, and I don't think that way anymore about myself. That's not treating myself. Or, you know, in the case of a PTSD person, it's much more serious. It can be drugs and alcohol.
Sure.
This is an immense help for people who have addictive issues. An immense help because almost always, I can't even think of a case where somebody who has come to me with an addictive problem hasn't had some trauma that they're using the addictive substance to medicate themselves.
Yeah,
So,
I guess you must see a lot of heart tugging. You know.
Oh yeah.
How do you cope with that? How does Judi take care of Judi? How does Judi put up a wall that the emotional stress, the emotional strains of you as the hypnotist and the client? My God, how do you keep your sanity?
Well, you do. For one thing, I have my own work to do, and I do it.
Okay.
So if something like happens to me, I have places that I go where I study at the Institute and things, and people that I can go to supervision,
good.
They call it,
right.
that I can go and I get to bang the bag,
Right, right.
And I need to do it once in a while, absolutely. That's another reason why I keep a drum in my office. It helps me. I get just,
Sure. I used to have a drum. My wife used to tell me to beat it all the time, but she didn't mean beating the drum. She meant
beat it.
Yeah, get out of here. Give me space. I need to cool down.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Children. Can hypnosis be used to help children in their schooling?
Yes. It can help them to, in their schooling in terms of learning how to focus better, yes, you can get them to focus better, to have a better sense of focus, to help to find out, what it is that's making them not want to focus. Children have so many fears that they don't talk about because they think we're going to believe that they're silly.
Right.
So we need to give them, I think that this gives them an excellent outlet in order to say whatever they want with someone that, again, in a child situation, you have to probably have the parent there, I would prefer that. And I do. But there are people who work with children all the time with hypnosis. And, it's a specialty. So, and it's probably not one of mine, but they do. They work with them.
Well,
I know that there are uses for it.
I respect you because you said, there are people who deal with that. That's not one of my specialties. And in today's world, to hear somebody say, well, no, I that's not my specialty, that's rare. So hats off to you again.
Well, thanks. Well, if I'm not true to myself, who's going to be true to me? So that's the way I look at it.
How true. But you must admit, Judi, that with all the internet crap that's available out there and the people who abuse the internet and abuse people who are seeking assistance, that honesty is a very rare commodity.
Well, it all comes from this, and that when you stop thinking that the financial reward is the ultimate thing that you're after and realize that the purpose for doing this sort of work is to spread light and love.
Right.
You look for the best way to do that, and then the financial reward comes as a result of that. You make your work your great joy, and you do it with love, and things. There's always enough. There's enough to go around. I would probably, if someone brought it, I've done like people in their early 20s. I really prefer with astrology as well to work with people once they're over 18. I don't like to work with children. I think that telling them that there's something predicting their future is a little bit hard for a child to wrap their minds around.
I agree. So I have to ask you one question before we get to astrology. What is unique about the kind of coaching and hypnosis that you do compared to other people out there?
Well, because it focuses not just on the mind and the body. It actually focuses primarily on the spirit. So it's about the spiritual development and how the spiritual development then drives the life, and it drives what we do with our minds and our bodies and our relationships, because we're acting out of our love of ourselves, our love of the divine within ourselves.
Gotcha. Here, let's talk a bit about astrology. We have about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
How can astrology help a person understand the past and the present as well as the future?
Well, it's actually more useful for the past and the present than it is for the future, because first of all, the first thing that astrology does is allow someone to see sort of the map of this lifetime. It tells them whether or not they're focused in one area, or if they have, some people have too many choices to make, and those are the ones that have difficulty finding a career, or one thing to settle on, and it's all about accepting that we are total individuals. We are so unique, each and every one of us, because of the variety and the permutations of the combinations of all the planets and the places and how they can be in signs and houses and aspects of one another. We are so individual that we look at the prescription of, okay, you grow up, you go to school, you come out, you go to the service, maybe you go to a college, maybe you go to a university, maybe you just come out and get married, or you become like a service worker or whatever.
Right.
But, you go, you make that passage. You get married, you have children, 2 cars, the garage, whatever, okay? Everybody doesn't do that, okay? And if everybody does do most of it, they do it in different order. And it's very useful to understand our uniqueness. And then it's also very interesting to look at our development from the standpoint of astrology. And this is something that I'm talking a lot to the transpersonal psychology people about. They don't know a lot about astrology. And there's a whole developmental process that goes on based on the cycles of the planets. The most obvious one is Saturn. Saturn goes around the zodiac once every 29 to 30 years. Everybody, maybe a lot of your listeners, because they're savvy people, they may have heard of the Saturn return that occurs at that point in time. And that's probably sometimes the first time people will come to see me around that age. Like, what is going on with me? And, and I can explain to them that they're coming into their full adulthood. Because at age 7, what happens? We lose our milk teeth and we get our permanent teeth. And Saturn
that's right.
rules the bones and the teeth. It's structure. It brings structure to our life. When we're 14, we go through puberty. We lose one body and get another one, right? It's a firmer one. Our bones harden and all kinds of things happen to our bodies at age 14. At 21, we're pretty well physically self-sufficient. Psychologically almost self-sufficient, but we can go out into the world. We think we know everything. And then by around about 25 to 26, 27, we have the return of the progressed moon, and that's often a milestone in people's lives. It's an emotional coming of age. And there's all the 27, you hear about all those rock stars that checked out at 27, and it has a lot to do with that. But most of us don't check out, thankfully, and we, move on. And but we come to a maturity, and then at the Saturn return, it's anywhere from 28 to 30. It depends on the speed that Saturn was going at the time of the birth. Then we come into full adulthood, and at that point in time, we're ready to take on all the responsibilities. People often at that point in time will get married if they're not married. Sometimes they get divorced if they've been married since they were 21. And then that keeps going. We have another Saturn return when we're 58, 59 years old. We have a Uranus return when we're 84, and a midlife crisis Uranus opposition when we're 42. So there's all this developmental stuff going on. So you can understand your development, see where you are. And I think the greatest gift of astrology, Rob, is when you're having a bad time and your astrologer tells you, well, that's because you have this, that, and the other going on, and it's going to be over.
Yeah.
And you can get a date, and you can see the lesson that you're supposed to be learning with each of the passages.
So the astrologer can help one see the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or just in some cases, people come in such a state that they're happy to hear there is such a thing.
Final question for you, my dear friend. What's happening in the world of astrology and the geopolitical world in 2016?
Well, we're looking at all of these presidential candidates here in the U.S.
Oh, you mean Mo, Larry, Curly, and the other ones, yeah.
Oh, my heavens. I mean, I was saying it to myself for the past few months, and it has more to do than with with Mr. Trump. I think the whole thing is like a reality TV show, which it sounds like it. If you close your eyes, that's what it sounds like. And, it's just crazy. It's just insane. And I think that geopolitically, this is going to be an interesting year, and that people are there's going to be a push-pull between exuberance and restriction. So I'm very watchful of the financial market. I am not thinking this is the greatest year for that. Don't think, though, that overall it's going to be as disruptive a year as, say, like 2011 was, where, we had things like the huge earthquake in Japan. In Fukushima, we had the Uranus-Pluto square going on then. Now we have Jupiter and Saturn in a square. That's what's causing all of what I just mentioned about the alternation between exuberance and restriction. But in general, not horrible, but I'm very watchful of the financial markets. I think that there's a lot of over-optimism about them, and throughout the world. And we all know what happens when the economy goes down. We know what's in store for us next, what they try to do. So, yeah.
Well, with everything that's going on in your political world in the United States, it was just like the days of the O.J. Simpson trial. It gives us something different to watch. And I'm finding it very interesting. What's going on?
Is popcorn popular in Canada?
Oh, it sure is. It sure is. But I love.
Yeah. Okay.
I love eating Captain Crunch with orange juice. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to need a lot of whatever it is this year. You're going to need a lot of it.
True. But it is interesting, and I want to take this opportunity of thanking you so much, Judi, for coming on the show tonight. I'd love to have you back on in the future. I know you're a very busy lady, but I think we have so much more to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, Rob, it's a pleasure as always, and I'll come back anytime.
Judi, what are your final thoughts for the members of the X-Zone Nation tonight?
Just to remember that there is a highest self inside of you, and that is the person, that's the part of your personage that should be in charge of your entire life. Find it, feel it, and live with it.
So in the immortal words of William Shakespeare, to thine own self be true.
There you go. To your higher self be true.
I like that even better. Judi Vitale, www.readthestars.com. Thanks so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Good night, Judi.
You too. Bye-bye now.
www.readthestars.com. Now, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You can always listen to the X-Zone 24/7, 365, and our live broadcast Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight at www.xzoneradiotv.com. I am Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.